Great day, attractive thinkers. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance. Dr. Toni Hatton here, supporting new and aspiring entrepreneurs in the mental struggle, because we all know what to do. You may know the action steps to take, but there's some things between knowing what to do and actually doing it. As an identity coach and get to the root specialist, we provide mental tools that support you in uprooting those mental blocks, those barriers that are in your way between you writing your book and starting your business, period. Welcome my co-host Tichet Bradshaw to another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance.
Happy Mindset Monday, everybody. We made it again and again and again. We get to do what we've never did, go where we've never gone, and have all that we deserve to have in this lifetime. Welcome, welcome to another week. It's so great to be alive.
Yes, it is, attractive thinkers. I already know you have your attractive thinker notebook handy and your pen so you can capture these gems that we're going to be sharing with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about fear, guilt, and shame. Now, these three states of consciousness, these three experiences or emotional spaces that we flow through, they're real and they can show up in anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be a heartbreak, like a break in a success or, a defining moment. It can show up in an experience, an unexpected experience, a disappointment, or just out of the blue. I mean, you can go about your day and be totally okay. And all of a sudden you might experience, or you might encounter some fear emotion and you don't even know where it came from. You weren't thinking about anything in particular. Nothing happened. Or, like for example, Tichet, I was in the market during Thanksgiving and I was having a fantastic and amazing time with my family. Everybody had their own shopping cart and their own list because I had to break things up, so everybody, so one person, the whole responsibility of the grocery list wouldn't be on one person. So it was pretty cool. But I'm going down this aisle and I was by myself and I'm going down this aisle and all of a sudden, it's almost like I entered into an energetic field or something. This overwhelming sadness came over me. And I tried to discern it or figure out what it was or describe it, find out its origin. Where did it come from? Like, okay, sometimes you got to go back in your mind, like, okay, what was I thinking? Was I thinking about something in particular? Did something happen? Did I just have a conversation on my phone about something? And it wasn't anything like that. How do you go from feeling okay and joyful and peaceful and grateful? It's Thanksgiving. We're grateful, right? How do you go from feeling gratitude to actually stepping into an energy of sadness? It was, if I could express the emotion, it was sadness, like a loss almost. And I was like, at first, see, here's the deal, attractive thinker. When you begin to get these emotions like out of the blue, sometimes you can be in the energy of it for a minute and not even know what's going on, not even know that your energy shifted, until have you ever been going throughout your office or going throughout the day in the street or in the car or in your home, and you find yourself humming a song and you're not really aware of it until you catch yourself. You say, wow, I've been humming this song ever since I woke up, and it's just been playing in the background. It's like that. We can enter into some type of energy throughout our day, and it's been lingering. It may have lingered for 20 minutes. It may have lingered from the time you got up from your desk to the time you went to eat your lunch, and you didn't realize it until you sat down and you were eating. It was like, why do I feel sad? That fear, shame, or guilt can creep up on you. That's the word I want to use. It can creep up on you when you're unexpected. So how do you handle it? What do you do? Talk to us, Tichet, about fear, guilt, and shame.
Absolutely. Sometimes with the fear, the guilt, and the shame, those it'll be in the background of you. Like when you said you was at the market and you were shopping, and then all of a sudden there was a thought that triggered. Maybe you weren't paying attention at the time. It
Mhm.
triggered, and then the emotions of it affected you. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So when we're dealing with fear, guilt, and shame, you can always trace it back to a thought. And sometimes because we're not used to thinking, well, we all pay attention to our thoughts, right? But sometimes when those negative thoughts come up, we're not really paying attention because we are working, we are doing something, we're giving, we're shopping, we're busy, and those thoughts come up. Those thoughts produce an energy. Every thought produces an energy. So when you have an energy or an emotion, if you're not paying attention to the thought, you'll think, I just feel like this for no reason. You'll think all of a sudden. It might not have even been all of a sudden. It may have been that there was a certain trigger that went by. It could be sometimes the music that might have been in the market. It could have been a person's energy that you walked past, or a word that you didn't think was offensive, or something that reminded you of a specific time. We have so many things that we deal with in life that stems from our past. It stems from a trauma. It stems from a hindrance, a broken heart. We have a lot of triggers, and those triggers can be seen on both sides. Those triggers can be seen from the harmful side of it and also the positive side of it. I always say there's two sides to every coin. So when you are triggered into something that causes you fear, you start to have those fearful emotions. You start to feel anxious, and you start to feel like some resistance. But it's the same thing when you have feelings of courage. When we have feelings of courage, you feel great. So that's okay. You feel the energy. That's okay. And you're paying attention to it and you try to operate like, man, I feel great. But it's when the spirit of discouragement or fear come in, we tend to not know where that thought was from. Well, that was from a statement that was said to you when you were a child that you didn't realize that was attached to a certain situation. Or there's sometimes, we like to go out and do things, and if you are empathetic, you might be picking up on someone else's energy. That's one of the things that I've learned last year, is that all the energy that I have was not my own,
Mm.
right? And once I learned that, and I had to learn the difference, because I'm like, what do you mean it's not my own? All right, check this out. Have you ever had a friend call you with a problem, and you were having a great day before this friend called, and then they call you with a problem and they in tears, and all of a sudden when you get off the phone, you got to get yourself together, you got to pick yourself off the floor, though nothing is wrong with you. You picked up that person's energy. This is why whenever the phone ring or whenever somebody pop up at your door, you have to check your spirit first, and you have to ask yourself, am I capable and am I willing to be able to carry somebody else's spirit at this particular time? Because when you carry another spirit, if you're not paying attention, you'll mistake them for your own. You'll
Mhm.
you'll sit there and you'll have all the emotions and go through all the things they
Mhm.
went through. And that person can be carrying fear, guilt, and shame. Those three things can really hinder you. They can cause you to stop doing joy, to stop being joy, to stop having joyful things, because those things, when you have those things under the root, all it can do is produce negative energy. All now you see, everything has dual sides, right? So you have fear. You have good fear and you have bad fear. Well, you say, what's the good side of guilt and shame? And that's the thing. Guilt, guilt, when you put guilt in there, that guilt is negative. But when you look at the positive side of guilt, to me, I feel like that is maybe consideration. You know what I mean? Where you consider somebody else. But when it goes out of balance, it becomes guilt. It becomes very stifling. When you think of shame, you say, well, what's the positive side of shame? It's not so much as the positive side of shame, it's reverence, right? So when you think of having a shame about something, you think of something I need to hide, something I don't want anybody to know, something I feel horrible about, right? But there's also some things that you might have that you don't want to let everybody know in an instance while you're working on it. So I feel like the way that we look at it, that's the way. The negative tone that we have with fear, guilt, and shame is what's stifling us, right? Because we have good fear. Fear will tell you, okay, don't go put your hand in the fire, right? Don't go play in fire. Don't go stick your hand in the socket. That type of fear, that reverence with that fear is fine. But when it comes out of balance and you're afraid, so afraid that you can't move, that you're stiff, that you can't even go forward, that type of fear, that's that out of balance fear. That fear that makes you feel shame, that makes you feel guilty because you can't move, and now you feel guilty about not being able to move, and now you feel shameful that you've never moved. So that the negative energy that comes with that is where the problem is. But all of that stems from your thoughts. All of that stems from how you think of yourself, your life, your gift, your work, your purpose, your power, the people around you. It stems from how you think of your journey, your decisions. All of those thoughts trigger an emotion. None of your emotions just switch unless you have, a chemical reaction in your brain. In that case, then yes, you have to seek nutrients and supplements that might help you get your chemical back in alignment. Other than that, you can look at a thought, but the truth of the matter is there is a reason behind everything you feel.
Yeah.
You're not just feeling upset. You're not just feeling fearful. You're not just afraid. Where did that fear start? Did that fear
Mhm.
start when you had a situation at 5 years old, and now ever since you've been afraid of that? You've been afraid of water ever since somebody dunked you in. You've been afraid of being on stage ever since somebody teased you in the second grade. You've been afraid of going out there because you watch somebody else fall, because sometimes it might not even be your situation. You might have watched somebody else's situation, took on their energy, not realizing you're carrying their root, and you applied it to yourself, and now you're afraid to fly because they fell. Because why
That's
are we
good.
afraid of flying if you never have flown? So this is what I mean by you take on other energy. So you have to be protective of your energy to make sure you don't allow your own self to get out of balance and end up in the fear, the guilt, and shame that we all know has a negative tone and a negative energy to it. And when it has a negative tone and a negative energy to it, you're going to have negative emotion. One thing I've learned is that if I have a negative emotion, I don't have to keep it. I don't have to have it. I can choose to let it go, or I could choose to work through what where those energies coming from. Because sometimes you got to work through it. Sometimes you just can't let it go. Sometimes you got to work through what it is, get the nutrient from it, and then eliminate it. You know what I mean? So you don't have to carry fear, guilt, and shame to hinder you from doing, being, or having anything. You don't have to. You can choose to rise above it all. Literally, you have the ability to rise above anything that you can feel fearful about. The best way to challenge fear is to face it. If you are afraid of something, face it. You'll realize it is not that big monster you thought it was. The fear itself is the biggest thing. It's not the thing that you're afraid of. It's not the thoughts that you're afraid of. It's not the experience you're afraid of. It's the fear of it. Because once you get up there and you face your fears, that fear turns into liberation. And then you end up feeling courageous. You end up wanting to tell the world you're no longer guilty, you're no longer shameful. Now you have shifted it to what was a negative experience was a positive experience. But those three things kind of tag together in order to hinder you from producing,
Mm.
to hinder you from being able to move forward, to hinder you from being able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. The fruits of it makes you hinder the fruits of your seeds. You have been planting seeds, and then when harvest time comes, those fear, guilt, and shame like to rob you of your harvest. But when you are an attractive thinker, a visual encourager,
Mhm.
you are paying attention to what's going
Mhm.
on with your seeds. Like when we look at plants and we see that one of the leaves is dying, you have to pluck that dead leaf off so that the others can thrive. This is what you have to do with your thoughts. You have to pluck that negative thought off so that your other thoughts can thrive. So that's
Mhm.
what I believe for fear, guilt, and shame is that they travel together. And
Mm.
those three is like that group of friends you just trying to get away from. You run with the wrong crowd. You trying to get away from. As soon as you go and do something great, those three people is like, you doing too much. They always have something to say, right? That's the fear, guilt, and the shame. And a lot of that is rooted in that. So then you start to feel guilty. Then you
Yeah.
start to feel shameful for even wanting something great for yourself. You hear somebody say you too good for this, or you think you better. We should. Why should I think anything other than that? You know what I mean? Like, why should I feel guilty for thinking that I'm great? That's the
Yeah.
thing we got to break free from. We are great and it's okay to be great. Back to you, Dr. Tony.
Oh, my. Tishette, that's good. That is so good. Attractive thinkers. I'm hoping that because you've been in our community for such a long time that you know what you should have been doing, and that was capturing the gems, right? So, Tishette, while you were talking, there's so many incredible things that you said that really, sparked a fire in me. I was writing in my own attractive thinker notebook. Okay. So, you mentioned fear, guilt, and shame during harvest time. See, attractive thinking, you might be saying, well, what does that have to do with me? What does this message have to do with me? When it's harvest time, fear, guilt, and shame can creep in. Like I said in the beginning of this message, I experienced an emotion. I didn't know where it came from. Fear, guilt, and shame can creep in unaware. And like Tasha said, to rob you of your harvest. And if you're not awake and alert and you don't have your attractive thinker tools in place and you're not paying attention to your life, they can rob you of your harvest. I want you to think about something. So, Tasha, and again, attractive thinkers, none of our episodes are scripted. We don't know what we're going to say until we get behind the camera. Until you see the video, that's when we know what we're going to say. So even now, what we're about to say, we don't know. We're saying this is inspired conversation that we're sharing with you, and we're sharing what's coming up for us. So while Tishette was talking, if you notice, I was writing because I'm looking up these words. Again, this is not scripted or planned. We share this information as we go. So I had to look up these words to share: fear, guilt, and shame, so attractive thinkers will really get an idea of what we're talking about here. Um, Fear, a distress. Before I get into that, there was something you said about the emotion that I had experienced during Thanksgiving in the supermarket. And you said it was a thought, it came from somewhere. And then you said, as you were talking about that, that same energy you were in about it was a thought, it came from somewhere. I was saying how I was writing in my attractive thinker notebook how emotions can be seasonal. We can encounter something every year at the same time. And if we're not paying attention to our lives, we think something's wrong with us because we're not aware that this happens every year on July 17th. When you're paying attention to your life, and as attractive thinkers, we know how we do. We journal. So we have a record of our lives that we can look back, flip back through even an entire year. And if you're like me, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years, you can look back in your journals and say, well, wow, every July 17th, I felt this energy. I felt this way. I felt this emotion, or I encountered this. So you were saying to shed about seasonal, and then I wrote down patterns, and you mentioned, I think you said triggers that are attached to this emotion. And then it hit me. When you said that, it hit me. I said, I realized that that energy that I was experiencing in the supermarket around Thanksgiving, because it was Thanksgiving Day that one of the last times that I saw my friend who passed away in the pandemic. It was Thanksgiving Day, and we were having dinner and playing board games with my family. My friend had come to visit, and she's no longer with us. And I don't know what aisle I was in. It may have been the spice aisle. I may have been looking in the canned goods. I don't know what aisle I was in. And it was like I stepped into an energetic field. and I felt the heaviness and I felt the sadness. And I remember her coming before me, and I knew at first I didn't know why I was feeling that way. But when I started monitoring and assessing, we talk about that, Tichet. You've got to discern, you got to do some checking, finding out where this is coming from or what is it. Did I just say something? Did someone just say something to me? Did I just experience something? And I remember her face coming before me, and I got really, really sad. I was like, man, wow, didn't have to be, just thinking to myself, like, wow, wishing it was another way, and things like that. But it happened Thanksgiving. It was the day before Thanksgiving. Actually, we were in the market shopping, but my friend who passed away, one of the last times I saw her, she was at my house playing games on Thanksgiving Day. So that, like you said, Tisha, there is a cause. There is a cause for how we feel. And we're going through this fear, guilt, and shame episode, Attractive Thinker, because we want you to be prepared. We don't want you to think that everything you feel is yours. Tisha says sometimes it's not even yours. And you have to consider that, because so many times in our world and the people that we encounter, when they don't have this information, or they're not in our attractive thinker community to get these mental tools, they'll turn to medication because they'll think that there's something wrong with them, or they'll start turning inward and finding all kinds of fault with themselves, thinking that they're no good or they can't make it. Every time you turn around, it's something. I always feel this way. I can't get out of this trap, this emotional trap, and things like that. When in actuality, when you have attractive thinker tools, you know how to assess. First of all, the foundation is, you're fantastic and amazing. You know that, and that will never change. So whatever you're feeling that's not fantastic and amazing, that's less than great, you know how to assess it and use your tools, and you know how to ride waves, and you know how to flow through things until you get yourself back, and all of that, right? That's why this is important. So when we talk about fear, a distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, pain, or whether it's the threat is real or imagined. There's something in there that we can unpack as well, to Shet, because sometimes when we experience things and we can't give a name to it or a voice to it or an experience, the mind will do it for you. And it will begin to create a story and a narrative, because it can't tell whether what you're experiencing is real or you're imagining this. So your mind will create it as if it is real. And what I mean by that is you'll begin to experience all of the emotion as if you're really going through that experience. So we have to be careful that fear is a very powerful, strong emotion. Okay. So the next one is guilt, the fact or state of being committed to an offense. Wow, that blew me away. Committed to an offense. Committed is a strong word. And then it said violation of an offense, a crime, or a violation, or a wrong. So a guilt means being committed to something that wronged you, or something that violated you, someone or something that performed a crime, an act of crime on you. Committed to the emotion of that. Committed is a very strong word. When we're referencing guilt. The third word in our topic today is shame, the painful feeling arising from the consciousness of something dishonorable, improper, ridiculous, done by oneself or another. Did you hear that? Done by yourself or somebody else. So you can shame yourself. It's a possibility that you can shame yourself. Who needs an enemy when we can do it to ourselves? Think about that, attractive thinker. Sometimes when things happen, we look to see who is the blame or what is the blame. What if we are? How do you handle it when you're the blame for your shame or your guilt, or you're inflicting fear on your own self? How do you handle that? So I want you to have these things in mind as you continue to hear this message on fear, guilt, and shame, because they're real emotions, but are they yours or someone else's? Are they yours or something else's? If they're yours, we handle it a different way than we would handle it if it's someone else's that you're taking upon yourself. You handle that totally differently. So another thing you said to share, you said it's not your own emotion you're feeling or that you're carrying. I love it when you said we could be carrying or feeling an emotion when someone else are the ones who broke their foot. Someone, think about that. Think about how off that is. Somebody breaks their foot, but we feel the pain of it. That's number one. What that's saying to me, Tisha, there's a strong connection somewhere.
Yes.
There's a strong connection somewhere that needs to be broken, because we should not be feeling the pain from other people's hurt. And I know that as a life coach, I have the ability to take that on. Now, in order for me to help someone, I have to feel what you're feeling. Now, I know a
Yes.
lot of people wouldn't say that, but that's how I roll. That's how my gift works. In order for me to help my clients, I have to feel what they're feeling. So when they speak to me, I don't just hear words. They're speaking words, but I see pictures and I'm able to see the pain. And that's how I can zero in on the root. See, you can't get to the root. As I say, I'm gonna get to the root specialist. You can't get to the root if you don't really see what's really going on in people's lives. You can't just hear what's going on. You got to actually see, because when you can see, you know where the roots are. You know where the roots are. You know what needs to be uprooted, and you can go directly to that thing and uproot it and pull it up so that you can set people free. So today we're talking about three emotions: fear, three emotions, three energies, three states of mind, three consciousness, three personalities that can enter into our experience. And how do we handle fear, guilt, and shame? Like Tashet said, they come together. It's like triplets. You don't, when you see one, you see the other. When you see fear, trust me, guilt and shame is not too far behind. When you see guilt, fear and shame is present. When you see shame, guilt and fear are not too far behind. I want you to think about that, attractive thinker, because these emotions that we feel have the tendency to prevent us, like Tashet said, from producing fruit. They have the tendency to stop us from growing. They have the tendency to keep us from moving forward in our lives. So we can't afford to not know when fear, guilt, and shame shows up. Talk to us, Tishat.
And that's true. The thing is, when those fear, guilt, and shame shows up, and we're dealing with the energy of that, there's sometimes where we'll try to find the fear, guilt, and shame will try to find itself. So that energy will try to find itself. And what I mean by that is when you're in that negative emotion, you'll start to research all up and through you to find anything that can match that energy. You
Mm,
say, what's wrong? Why do I feel guilty? Oh, I must feel guilty because. And you'll
mm,
start going through everything you did less than perfect to
mhm,
say, okay, this must be it. This is a major problem. And sometimes that's not even it. Sometimes it is other people's stuff, but you think it's yours. So in order for that to make sense, you look inside yourself and you find something that has to match it, and you make that a bigger thing than it has to be, even though you potentially could have gotten over that thing that you just attached guilt and shame to. So
mm,
when you're operating under those energies, the first thing we try to do is make sense of it. And we have to stop making sense of fear, guilt, and shame. We have to go opposite. We have to apply faith. We
mm,
have to apply belief. We have to apply self acceptance.
mm,
There's no shame in you being you. You're
mm,
not hurting anybody. You're not violating
mm,
anyone. You have the ability to be okay. You have to be okay with being you.
mm,
And so sometimes when we look different than others, we start feeling shameful. We start
mm,
saying, well, my gift is not like their gift, and I can't
mm,
pray like they pray, and I can't do like
mm,
they do. I can't preach like they preach, and you start feeling less than. You start
mm,
kind of second guessing your own self, and you start shrinking yourself down, and down, right?
mm,
And then you start feeling guilty for not being what everybody else is doing and being. Even though you tried to fit in that circle, it could not fit you. And so
mm,
you tried to fit yourself in.
mm,
Squeeze, did everything you could, but for some reason you just couldn't be it. So you say to yourself, why can't I just be this? Why can't I just do that? And you end up beating yourself up. Why can't I just do that? And then you start to be afraid of what those consequences have. So those things, you
Mhm.
see how they come together. So there's three things you have to do in order to combat those. You have to go in faith. You have to understand that you did your best, so you have to forgive. And then you have to accept. So you have to faith, forgive, and accept. You have to apply those three things to fear, guilt, and shame in order to break through to it so that you can understand where you are in your life so that you can go forward and not carry those three old friends with you. You
Mhm.
know, those old friends of fear, guilt, and shame can't go with you in its next level. It can't take you into the next level. So you have to be able to let that go. You have to let those friends stay in the past, right? Fear, guilt, and shame, the old friends that talked
Mhm.
about you behind your back, didn't have your best interests at heart. Those three friends, you gotta let them go while you're going forward. You know,
Right.
because when you get to where you're going, you're not gonna have time to be operating in fear. So you're gonna have some courage, you're gonna have some faith, you're gonna have to step out into the unknown. You're gonna have to be willing to try some things, to experience some things. Will you like everything you experience? No, but you tried, and that's enough. So if you tried and it did not work out, that's all it is. That is not a failure. So you have to forgive yourself. There's no guilt in that. You did the best you can with the situation that you had, and you
Yeah.
learned something from it. So that makes it a win. And
Yeah.
now you're able to show yourself because you're proud of what you did. You're proud of the things that worked out and didn't work out. You're able to show yourself because you know all things work together for the good. And now you done turn your fear, guilt, and shame into power. This is how you turn your problem into power. Because a lot of our problem is rooted in fear, guilt, and shame. And we
Mhm.
don't have to carry that. Fear, guilt, and shame is like the ex you have to let go. You have to disconnect from that soul tie of
Mhm.
fear,
Look at
guilt, and shame. You got to let that thing stay where it is in the past and just trust that your life was better without it. Back to you, Dr. Tony.
fantastic and amazing. Attractive thinkers, I don't have anything else to say. That's a wrap. Okay. I trust that you have captured these gems and you're going to be, it's almost like being an emotional detective or an energy detective, checking, monitoring, and protecting and guarding and watching your energy all throughout your day. When you begin to do that, miracles begin to happen because we are energy beings. And when you monitor your energy, it's like a surfer on the waves of the sea. You know when to stoop low, you know when to stand up in your power, you know when to give and you know when to take. You're just mastering this energy, this wave, okay? And it makes your life flow much better than the sporadic and the static on the line and the conflict in your energy and things like that. Energy is everything. And when you begin to master and manage your energy, you make amazing things happen in your life. All things become possible. And you realize that, hey, I matter. How I feel matters. My energy matters. And my peace is priceless. Attractive thinkers, you always hear us give you information and resources on how you can launch your book idea or start your business idea or mend your broken heart, heal through a broken heart, stepping into a defining moment, turning it into a destiny moment, healing and allowing and extreme self-care. We talk about all of these things because all of these aspects of life affect you and they have to do with you and how you prosper in life. You want to prosper because attractive thinkers aren't mediocre, we aren't routine, we're fiery and we're passionate and we're driven and we're clear and we want purpose and truth and amazing things to happen in our lives because we know we're co-creators. We will forever be creating. So I'm so excited that you tune into Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance because that's what you're actually doing. doing, you're giving yourself a fighting chance at life. You're giving yourself a chance at abundance, experiencing the abundant life, even though we have to experience the waves of life, the ups and the downs. So I want you to stay connected. Use these tools, go over your notes. They weren't just notes to take until the next episode. Review your notes, let them bless you throughout the entire week. Stay focused on the gems that you've gathered along the way. Click that like button, click that subscribe button, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, part of our community, the Attractive Thinker generation, the family where you belong. So you have the tools that you need when life comes knocking on your door. Share this episode, share this message with your circle of influence, because if it blessed you, if it lifted the weight off, do the same for others. Tell our audience how they can stay in touch with you, the visual encourager.
Absolutely. You can find me on my website at www.visualencouragement.com. We provide mental support for movers and shakers, groundbreakers, trailblazers, pathfinders, visionaries who desire to move mountains but need help lifting the heaviness so that they can create a new vision for themselves. Go to my contact us page, put in your website, let me know how I can uplift you, enlighten you, and encourage you so that you can create a new vision and walk that vision out beyond the break. Again, my website, www.visualencouragement.com. See you soon.
Awesome. Attractive thinkers, you hear us say it all of the time. Our life's work, that's to make your life better. Remember, it is not what you're going through, it's how you're viewing it. Think attractively, and we'll see you soon.